presentation that we have scheduled for this period deals with two of the first exercises, or the first exercises that you encounter upon joining the Philosophers of Nature. Probably the only required course of study, and we should put required in quotes, is the Fundamentals of Esoterics course. Let me ask, how many of you have actually gotten that and read it? Okay. Now, how many of you have actually gotten it, read it, and done the exercises? See, fewer hands go up. It's a natural attrition. The question was, how many of you have gotten the Fundamentals of Esoterics knowledge course and have actually done the exercises? Okay. Yeah, we have the hands go down. Well, and the heads go down too. I can see the further. All I can see is the back of your head because you're that far close to the tabletop, then I call on you. Okay. And because I don't feel like talking too much for the next hour and a half, and also for practical purposes, what we're going to focus on is these two exercises, what they do in theory, and how you can get better at them, because they're important. This is about doing. It's not just about thinking. Energy follows thought, but the more we do, the better we get at it, and the more energy we can apply to our work. So it's good to go home and think about these things, to set a template in your mind. It's good to develop a relationship with your heart so you can feel them. But in order to bridge that gap, which is somewhere in here, you have to do something. And that is the purpose of esoteric exercises. As we've heard earlier today, we do not so much discover the secret fire as we get rid of the crap that surrounds it and we just let it be itself. And that is something that we have to work at, and we do it in an abstract way. Thank you very much. Through meditations, and we can do it in very direct ways, through practical laboratory work. So, who has had success with the checkerboard exercise? Okay, good. You've actually gotten it to the gray stage? Uniform gray all the way across? Okay, good. Because I'm going to call upon you. Okay, so. Okay, those of you who didn't raise your hands, take note of that. Do not raise your hands. How many of you have not had much success with the checkerboard exercise? I'm assuming not doing it means, okay, just because you haven't done it, that does not mean you haven't had success, okay? I think those of you who have tried it and haven't gotten the results you wanted. Yeah. This is not an easy exercise. Either is the mirror. So, like, why do they hit us with two of the most difficult things right up front? Well, I don't know. You'd have to ask John that question. But hopefully by the end of our hour and a half together, you'll have a better understanding of how to approach these exercises, some of the benefits that you can get from them, and how to slow or speed up the learning curve. Now, to help you with that, we have checkerboards. See, because even though you may not be able to do it here, and you're going, great, you will have homework. Okay? So if someone would like to pass these out, there you go. Okay. Now, before we get into the actual exercise itself, let's look at some of the fundamentals of what we do. How many of you actually have an oratory? A place that you've dedicated to the work? Good. Okay, here we go. Why does it? This is like an IQ test, isn't it? I think I'm failing. Okay. Good. Okay. Is that straight back there? Okay. As we did earlier today, when we did the opening exercise, the preliminaries are very important. Okay? That is the foundation upon which all of your work builds. And if you want to think of it this way, you can say it's a triangle. In fact, what's really nice about esoteric exercises, as well as practical mundane questions, is somewhere along the line that their answers to, or the solutions to your questions can be found in a triangle. First we need relaxation. Okay. Then we need concentration. And then we need something to concentrate on, and that is visualization. And if this is done correctly, we achieve a point of unity, which we call, anyone know? Meditation. Because what does meditate mean? It means to bring to the center. Okay? So if you're having trouble with your meditations, you have to look at these three things and find out which is lacking. Now, of course, once you achieve a meditative state, you can open yourself up to an illumination, and that creates another series of triangles. In order to relax, we have to have the proper posture. So we take what's called the hieratic position, or the pharaonic position, which is as we have. We sit in a chair as we are, not slouched, but straight, okay? Hips forward, and palms on your hips. Why here? Well, put them out here. Put them on your knees. What do you feel? Stress in your elbows and your shoulders, right? Put them back here. Everything slides down. It sinks down easier. You have to keep your back straight but not stressed. So you kind of stretch out the spine a little, tilt your head forward, rock it back, and let it sink down into your collarbone. You'll find that your head won't wobble back and forth then. And as I said earlier, in some statues of the Buddha, you see the head slightly tilted, kind of locked into position. If you practice this often enough, you'll find the position that is right for you. The feet are apart because you're trying to maintain some contact with the earth. You don't want to completely seal yourself off from its magnetic forces. You still want to be able to bring some realization through, at least at this point. If you take a close look at all yoga postures, that is, yoga postures that are designed for meditation, they're designed to do the same thing that we just described here. Keep your spine straight, have a strong seated position, and keep your head from wobbling. And in doing so, what does that do? It allows you to breathe easier, slow and deep from the diaphragm. If you look at other yoga postures, most of them are designed to alter the way you breathe or to compress the nerve current. But in the beginning, they all do the same as this. So, we breathe in for a minute or two, square breathing. I asked earlier, how many of you found this difficult to do? A few raised your hands. Okay. This can be a very difficult exercise. It requires focus and concentration. Because now you're telling your body what to do. And often it tells us what to do. Okay. How long do you do it for? This says just for a minute or two. That's fine. But that's really not enough. Instead of putting a definite clock to it, or you might want to do this as an experiment, get a clock or a stopwatch, get it going, and then do the breathing. And at that point at which you feel a tingling in the palms of your hands and the soles of your feet, that's when you move on to the next phase. Okay? Now the more you do this, the sooner you'll get the tingling. Because what you're doing is, as you take in this energy, you are cleansing your psychic centers, you're cleansing what we call the psychic nervous system, or the nadis, but you're also having a very real physical effect on your physical nervous system. Because all esoteric practices are designed to do one thing, and it was mentioned during our presentation on the secret fire. and that is to increase the sensitivity of the nervous system. That's what they all do. Okay? And this is a very good exercise to do it through the breath. So you can do it for 4 seconds, you can do it for 5 seconds. Please do not do it for more than 8. That is pulses of 8. 8 inhale, hold for 8, exhale for 8, hold out for 8. At least not in the beginning, because you may find that that can cause a profound disorientation. If you build up to it, that's great, okay? But as a beginning point, because remember, this is lesson 1, 4 or 5 is fine, okay? Please do not go beyond 4 or 5 seconds in each phase. And of course, stop if there's any pain or discomfort. Now in the Qabalah course, it says we shouldn't do any work without first attempting to contact our keter, our higher self. And in essence, that is what we're talking about here. Strive to be mentally calm and concentrate on the fact that you are then to listen to your higher self. It's very important that you do that, because that's why you're doing this stuff, right? Yeah? You know what I mean? That's what it's about. So reaffirm that purpose to yourself. Perform the work or exercises you choose, and take notes. As you know, we have 2 research groups here. One is Aura, which is given to me because I'm an oral kind of guy. I like to talk a lot. And the other is Labora, which is given to people who actually like to do the work. And how do we have something to write about? What do we do? And is it the monkeys that write that? Or is it the lab genie? Okay, we write it down. So take notes when you're done. You had mentioned earlier about keeping your eyes closed before you wake up. And it's very important that when you go through these phases, that's a very good suggestion, by the way. Okay? And those of you who want to learn more about lucid dreaming and pulling things through that veil should read the articles on lucid dreaming that we have in the Stone. They'll be very helpful to bring stuff through. Because we say that those things are volatile. So what does that mean? They're very expansive and energetic, and they want to return back to the invisible realm from which they came. What you need to do is fix it. You write it down. But what does that also do? It sends a message to your higher self that you're serious about this. Right? How often haven't you had somebody in your daily life come up to you and ask you for help with something? You give them the advice or suggestion that you think is most appropriate, and then they don't do it. Then they come up again, and say, okay, well, you tell them again. And they don't do that either. They come up a third time, and what do you do? If you're smart, and not an enabler, as we like to say in 1990s language, you walk away. You don't solve your own problem. You don't listen to me. So you have to listen to your higher self. It's called Knowledge and Conversation with our Holy Guardian Angel, in which we were told several seminars ago repeatedly, at first when we have the experience, we listen. We don't dictate to it. So if you want to get more information, write down what little bit you get, and then more will be given to you. But if you just want to do the exercises and have some neat experiences, but not really care whether you make sense of them or not, the quality of information may not be that good. Or it may not be what you would like or expect it to be. Only do this work in a positive mood. Why? Someone give me a suggestion. What? That's correct. It sets the mood. When we walk into a temple, how many of you have been to St. Joseph's Oratory in Montreal? Yeah, it's a fabulous place. It's a wonderful place. I found that it was impossible to have a negative thought there, which is maybe a strange realization, which says where my mind was going at the time. But I found it impossible, which I still remember that, and that made a profound impact on me. So we have these physical temples, but what is the real temple? How is that physical temple That physical temple doesn't have its effect just because we build it. It has that effect because the people who have worked and prayed and labored there have helped to create that. And it's so strong that someone who isn't even involved in that kind of thing can feel it when I go in. So the temple is of the heart, and we carry it with us in what we do. It is we that make a work sacred or not. So when you do this, have a positive attitude. It will make the work more beneficial and helpful. If you're in a bad mood, don't do it. Okay? If you're grumpy, walk away. Because all it will do is reinforce whatever you take to it. It will only make it stronger. Okay? Think on your own so you can reach a greater freedom. Everyone knows what an egregor is? Yeah? Yeah. Essentially, it's a thought form. And in practical Kabbalistic terms, it is a thought form that exists in the astral plane that helps us here on Earth reach Tifereth, or some reflection of our higher self. It helps us do that. It doesn't do it for us. It is my belief, and you may disagree with me, I may be wrong, but I do not believe that egregors extend beyond the world of Yetzirah or the astral plane. I think in the solar world they disappear. No. That's a record. An egregor is a thought form. It's a very vital being. And you create them pretty much anywhere you go. I'm talking in an esoteric sense what they do. But a group thought form exists in a political party, in a school, in a family, in a state or a country. It exists everywhere. But what you want to do is free yourself from that thought form, because just as it creates boundaries to help you in one direction, those boundaries also hinder you in another. So you have to make your decisions about what is useful to you and what is not in that area. But free yourself from those things which inhibit your freedom of thought. Okay. Open your heart. That's what we did earlier this morning. There's a little paragraph that says something along the lines of, the brain sows the seeds, but the heart reaps the harvest. Okay. Listen to your heart so you can become, as John says, a being of heart. And listen also means acting. Okay? So when you hear what it tells you, do what it says. If you have the opportunity, and you do every morning, meditate according to the influences of the day, which we had given to us at the end of the last lecture, the planetary influences of each day of the week, and open your mind. This is probably the hardest point, is to obtain a point of mental stillness. Because as was said in our lecture earlier today, what do most people complain about? What is the hardest thing for them to do? Concentrate. Yeah. And the exercises of the checkerboard, the exercises of the mirror, are designed to help you reach higher levels of concentration. And find a gesture which you can use to close the work. Just as we said, have something that you begin the work with, have something that allows you to say, it's over, it's finished. Okay. So, and stay with it for some time. Now, yeah. If you're fortunate enough to have a room set aside for this work, you'll find that it will build up a charge, because the room becomes a very real three-dimensional talisman, if you will. Okay? That is something which is charged with energy. And it really does take up, hold on to a charge of energy. It depends. If you're doing a lot of Venus work, maybe not. So have an area that you can dedicate to it. Have a small altar if you can. I know people who have permanent altars. I know them have some who set them up and close them down. I have some folks who you won't even know what they have as an altar. Your choice is yours. If you're trying to make this a Kabbalistic work, use Kabbalistic symbolism. If it's more alchemical, fill it with that symbolism. Usual stuff, candle holders, incense, your binder for the notes that you will take. This reason for weak or no electrical light, my only guess there has something to do with magnetic fields. Maybe Jean can tell us why he put that in there. But as we saw earlier today with the very real flame, the actual presence of living fire is very stimulating in a way that electrical light is not. Drink some water. Cleanse your mind, cleanse your body. And when you go into the work, read the lesson several times, particularly the exercise. There's an alchemical phrase that says, read, 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 and read again. Pray and practice. And I guess with alchemy, it's a little more important that you really understand it so you don't kill yourself. You don't have to worry about that here. You're probably not going to do that. And some demon from the abyss is probably not going to eat your brain, although you may think that at times. But just so that you have success. If you're in a rush and you're not paying attention to the directions, then it's harder to have success, and then you don't want to do the work. My great uncle was in an organization which many of you belong to for over 65 years. And there was a little booklet that was given out for daily attunement periods. And the instructions in it were very simple. I mean, there's really nothing to it. But every day he would do this, and every day he would read the booklet before he did the work. And it became, for him, a kind of a ritualistic thing that reminded him of what he was doing, why he was doing it. And at first I thought this was pretty strange until I began to do that practice myself. And then I understood. It sets your mind in motion. It focuses you to the work that you're about to do. Just as Russ had said, if you study in the same place at the same time to do your homework or to do any other work, it increases your level of receptivity to the subject matter. And here the subject matter is ourself. There it is, in checkerboard. Pretty simple, huh? Doesn't even fill a whole page. It's got to be easy to do. I just noticed, and this is how things happen. I really just noticed last week that preferably one of 8x8 squares. I'm guessing that there's some maybe Kabbalistic meaning behind that, because 8 is a number of Hod. But maybe just because it's easy to make a nice square that way too. Place it in front of you. Put your burning candles on the side. And you fix your gaze at the center of the board. And it begins to take on this uniform color. Now, it says that the uniform color is the result of the balance of the two, and when successfully completed, contributes to the rebalancing of the energies in us. What other exercise can you think of that attempts to do the same thing? Yeah? Yeah, we were talking about that last night. Yeah, the 3D pictures. Yeah. That may be some of the vision that you need to develop when you attempt this. But what other exercises may you be familiar with? Yeah. Pardon? Middle pillar. Okay. Excuse me. Pardon? I was thinking of the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram. That's an attempt to, pardon? The lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, that is an attempt to balance the energies in us, except it's a little more specific, because this one is concerned with what? Our positive and our negative energies. So what do these create? These create the elements. So when we do the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, we're trying to balance out these energies too. Okay. You see that more strongly in the supreme invoking ritual of the pentagram, where you invoke active and passive energies before you invoke these. So my guess, and I say it's a guess because I don't know, is that this seems to be a nice non-ritualistic way of doing the same thing, of harmonizing those energies. But what's nice is when we harmonize them, we don't neutralize them. Okay? Instead, what we create is a very dynamic balance where we're better able to access both of them. But it also makes us more stable. Okay? Because, like we said earlier, don't do this when you're overly, if you're not in a good mood, if you're not in a positive mood. But you also know what it's like when you try to meditate. If you're too hyper or too active, your mind is spinning too fast. Okay. Doing an exercise like this helps you to develop concentration and focus so that you can calm those energies down within yourself and bring it to a focal point. Okay. Now, who said they had success? You did. What was, when you were doing the exercise, at what point did you finally have success with it? I mean, was it right off, first time? Yeah. Oh, you're lucky. Mine was 2 or 3 months. Was there find anything in particular about how you looked at the board that made a difference? Okay. Okay. And you had success with it?
Yeah, but you know, you said you see it gray, and I'm like, pretty much gray. And I use a test for it, and it's brown, so I have my
Okay, what did the directions say?
It said either black and white.
Okay. And there's no magic marker or ruler, and okay. Now you know where I'm coming from. Okay. You had success with it? Yeah. Month. Okay. So everybody's going to be a little different, and you're just going to have to work at it, and just be patient and steady with it. Maybe a few minutes every day in the beginning, and then maybe just 2 or 3 times a week, or once a week on a regular basis after that, until you feel comfortable with it. And you made it. Did it have 8 squares too? Okay. You follow the directions. You get a cookie. You don't. But thank you for sharing. Yeah. What we did an experiment with the study group that I'm part of in Pennsylvania, and when we were doing pathworking, I had them visualize as part of it, and during one of the paths, checkerboard beneath their feet, because that's just typical Kabbalistic symbolism. And as part of it, I had them visualize it beginning to shimmer and shift to gray. And almost everyone who did that, just by visualizing it, said that they felt this kind of like collapsing or balancing out of their energies and kind of a pull upward. So I thought it was kind of neat, because they got some effect through just visualizing it. So you can even practice that. If you're not having the success you want, you can practice or imagine yourself going through it and having the results you want and kind of train your brain to do it. Now, why does this happen? My guess is it's some kind of optical illusion. It's a physiological phenomenon that takes place. And Anthony last night, when we were talking about three-dimensional pictures and all of this, pointed out something similar in those kinds of how those three-dimensional pictures work, that they do create, your brain physically creates this illusion, which when it occurs is a balancing of the left and right hemispheres of the brain. So, yeah, that makes sense. I'm not saying that's what happens when you do this exercise, but at least theoretically, it sounds pretty good. So keep that in mind. That may be some of the things that are happening, and be sensitive to it, to be open to it. Now the fun begins. Yes? Mm-hmm. And we don't want to give up control. As much as we say we want success in this work, or we want egolessness, or we want this or that state of enlightenment, the reality is we like very much who we are, and we're right all the time, and everyone else is wrong, and that's just the way the world is, and we don't want to give up control. And that's why we refer to the little king of Malkuth having to step aside, so that the higher self, or the big king, can be listened to and have some influence in our daily lives. And that passivity, or slowing down of the mind, is one of the first steps. And then once you've slowed the mind down or stilled it, not dictating what you expect the results to be. So yeah, that's very important. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Well, as it says in the literature, that it's a year-long course that you can't do in a year. It's just impossible to do this work in a year. And I know folks who, this is introductory, but I know folks who've been in esotericism for years and very good at what they were doing, who, when they did some of these exercises, were very surprised. They read it and they thought, oh, this is, excuse me, this is pretty easy. And then they started doing it, and this is harder than I thought. And they were very good ceremonialists. They're on the ball. I think the best thing to do is to use common sense, and to spend time with each one, to focus on it. And then when you've really reached a point where you don't think you can benefit any more from it, move on to the next one. Because some of them you're going to resonate with very quickly, and maybe that'll help open some doors that will help you then go back and have better experience with the ones you're not doing too well, because we're all a little different. But I think it's best, follow the directions, spend the time with it, and then when you say, okay, I'm really banging my head against the wall now, move on to the next one. So, because you may find in a year and a half, it just, happens. Okay. Anything else? No. Okay. What we need to do now is set up a small altar so that we can have someone who's never done this before do it. Okay. So I'll need a volunteer. I'll let you sweat for a few minutes before I pick you. Steve here? I was wondering if Steve was here. Okay. I want to know if we could use this, but I don't want to if he's not here. Ah, very good. Okay. Watch yourself. It's a little water. That's fine. Okay. Good. Where'd my checkerboards go? They're all done?
I got it.
You got a stack? Okay, good. Okay, I got it. Okay. And do we have a lighter? First we get the lighter, and then we get the sacrifice for the flames. So, thank you very much. When you had, how did you find it was the best? I found when doing this that the position of the candles tends to have an effect too. So, play around with those when you're doing it. Okay. But who now would like to? Well, you've had success. So come on up and kind of pay attention. I'm going to ask you to do two things. I'm going to ask you to do it, and then when you're done, kind of pay attention to what it is that allowed you to kind of slide into that state. So was there something about your eyes that helped, your gaze? Where were you focusing on? And just maybe we want to try and see if there's some tricks we can learn to pass on to some others. Okay. Okay. Okay, so you're relaxing your eyes.
Relaxing your eyes, you're basically not kind of focused.
Okay.
So what happens is you're not kind of focused. Immediately the light starts to become darker and darker. Well, even even now, it's not to my eyes.
Is it kind of like using peripheral vision?
You have to do blood peripheral vision, and also become close your eyes. Where you get the retinal stimulation, like that starts coming up. So it's basically, you're not really focusing at all. You're going into your going back to your retinal stimulation.
Okay.
So you're getting a sense of a peripheral vision. You're not really using the focus. You're coming directly on where it's relaxing the light.
Okay. Yeah, so now someone who's never done it before, or hasn't had many results. Okay. Well, now, we heard what he said. It's kind of using, the eyes have to be very relaxed, and kind of gentle gaze. not a lot of tension or stress around here, and using your peripheral vision almost. Anthony referred to it as kind of like when you're watching a speaker and you kind of doze off and see two of the speakers at the same time. So if that's what you're seeing right now, either you're seeing my astral double or you're falling asleep. But that's what you kind of want to do. Just gently gaze and kind of let it focus at some point either beyond, almost as if you're focusing beyond the checkerboard. And remember to breathe deep before you do it, just to relax your body and your mind. Okay, how about you stay with it and try and go for as much gray as possible. Well, it may take time. Okay, thanks. Kind of like that. And what do we never do? We never blow the candle out, right? Why is that? Right. Should I quiz you too? Okay. This is a hard exercise to really lecture on because it is pretty simple and it's not very demonstrable to groups. But what the purpose was is to really have you talk about it, particularly those who've had more success, to share some clues. And I have found, as others have stated, that to really have success in this is based upon the work you do preliminary to it, the breathing, the setup, your mood and attitude, and then having a very relaxed gaze, almost as if you're trying to use your peripheral vision. Not forcing, not straining, just letting your eyes just focus. And that seems, from my experience and others, to have the most effect. It does require a great deal of concentration and does build concentration. So even though you may not be getting direct, tangible results from an exercise like this, that is, when you do a healing treatment on someone, you get a direct result. Either it works or it doesn't work. It's something you can point to and say, I did A, B, and C, I got D and E. This is more of a fundamental exercise. It's like when you were in grade school and you had to do all those tracings of all the letters. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay. You don't trace those letters now because now you know how to write them or make them properly. So the same thing with concentration. As you develop it, you can apply it to other areas of your work. And I like to make the joke, you don't do push-ups because you plan on moving a floor. You know. right? But you do it for the other benefits that it gives you. And if need be, think of this and some of the other exercises that we do as psychic push-ups. It's not because we get a direct, tangible result from them that we can always perceive, although we are getting unconscious results, because what we do get from them, we can apply to other areas of our life and our esoteric work. Okay. I have 10 after here. Is that the time? We're going till 6? Okay. Does anyone want to take a 5-minute break? Or do you want to just keep going through? Yeah? Okay. Now the second exercise is the mirror exercise. I found this not too terribly difficult because I had done work similar to it. And I'm sure most of you have. But the results from it were very different. I had one fellow email me on it who had maybe 10 or 15 years of very practical Kabbalistic work, who got this exercise and he did it. And he said that he was very astounded at the results. And that it was very different from other work that he had done. How many of you have done work with mirrors? You know, trying to see past lives or something? Yeah. Okay. With this, when working on any esoteric work, how many of you have felt a chill or a sudden cold? Okay. We're told that you shouldn't have any cold sensation or any chill when you do this. It is my belief that what occurs when you have that experience is a radical leaking of energy. I've talked to a few other folks about it, and that's pretty much what they suggest as well, is that you're losing more than you're taking in. So if you experience that kind of cold or chill, just stop what you're doing. Okay. There may be other explanations for it. I'm just not aware of them. Okay. Once again, this is easy. We set the mirror up and we stare at our nose. Sounds easy enough, right? You could stare at your navel or stare at your nose, right? One of them will bring you enlightenment. Now there are 3 possibilities. I think all of us have had this one. Nothing happened. Yeah, then we pack it up and go home. Okay? Or you get the sensation of cold in your feet. So then you really pack it up and go home and say, I'm never doing this ever again. Or after a lot of work, the mirrors starting from the sides becomes darker in concentric pulses. I've had it get dark, but I haven't had it get dark in concentric pulses. Okay. Now, as we say, if you obtain one, repeat the experiment several times, because what happens is you focus on the root of your nose, but then your concentration kind of wavers. So then you go back, and then of course it wavers again, and you do this several times. That's why each time you do it, you help develop more and more concentration. Otherwise, you risk what we say if number 2 happens, cold, you risk an encounter, although it doesn't incur any real risk, with the guardian of the threshold, which is said to be the name for the lowest level of perception of our memories of nature. One of the fellows who had done this, as I had said, work for quite some time, that's exactly what happened to him. is he met his vision or experience of the guardian on the threshold, and it was very, very psychically traumatic for him. Now, of course, once again, he knew that there was no real danger from it, but that it was his perception of it, and it shocked him, because after having been doing this work for so long, he had thought this was way behind him. Number 3, if you achieve the black point, focus on your heart. Once again, we're moving from the head to the heart, and begin to slow it down. Okay? And slow the beat down. Little by little, you'll feel a sense of calm. Now, what's nice is, even if you don't get the black phase, you can do that on your own, just to help yourself out. Just slow your heart down and allow yourself to feel that calm. And maybe when you go back and do the exercise again, you'll carry that over with you, and you'll have some more beneficial results. Now, after you have had this experience, you may see that a light begin to pulse in the area of the heart. Now, who's done the experience, or who has done the experiment and had that any of those experiences? Who's had the cold from it? Okay. Who's been able to get it to go to black? Anyone get it to the point where they can see the pulse in the center of their heart or chest? No? Okay. Well, then we go back and we start from the beginning, don't we? After we read the instructions all the way. Okay. That's right. Okay. Now, if you're not having a lot of results, you can attempt the experiment again on Monday, preferably during the 3rd hour after sunset. And I have to check, do they mean the 3rd hour, as in 60-minute hour, or the 3rd planetary hour? 3rd planetary hour, yeah. That's what I thought. Okay. Veronica is a good tea for Monday, because it's lunar, and you can take it in the hour following sunrise. Well, what have we just been told? This whole experiment is designed to do what? What's it trying to do? Our first one is trying to balance out our energies. And now this one is telling us that it's to help us go here. So the first one strengthens us here, and the second one is helping us to penetrate into what the Kabbalists call Yesod, and see those reflections in the astral record, in the Akashic record. Now, the reason we would like to see that concentric pulse is because the mirror will light up as a very peculiar thing. And I remember when it happened, and it was a very odd feeling. It was just as odd as when it went to black, and that took a lot of work. I didn't find that easy to do. Nor did I find it easy to get this, nor do I find it something that I can do readily. But when I get it, it's pretty cool. It also seems that when I get it, my dreams are affected. So in a sense, this work builds on all the other work we do. You may see something different from yourself. Now, I know many of you have done work and just kind of told to set up your sanctum or your oratory and gaze in the mirror at yourself, and maybe you'll see people standing behind you, maybe you'll see your face change, maybe you'll see past scenes or lives, what have you, maybe you just see fantasy, maybe you just see random floating psychic images. You have to learn some discretion as to what these things are. Could just be things that your mind makes up. But here we're told that as you pass this threshold, you begin to see things that belong to the realm, the memories of nature. So it's kind of like a checkpoint for us that we know when we get that, what comes after it is at least an authentic psychic experience and not wish fulfillment or make-believe. The nice thing about this is that if we get good at this, we get to answer a lot of our own questions, because what do the memories of nature have? It has the answers pretty much to everything. Right? The Akashic record. So you can, as we're told, fill your mind with a particular question ahead of time, hold on to that, perform the experiment, and get an answer. Well, maybe you don't get that far. Maybe the mirror never lights up for you. Does that mean you can't do it anyhow? Sure. Just by going through the motions, you set inner patterns in place that maybe you won't see it in the mirror, but maybe you'll have a dream that night, or an insight or a meditation elsewhere that will help you to find the answer to the question that you seek. Just because you begin the work in your oratory doesn't mean that's where all the answers have to come from. It can come from other places. And I found that to be very true in my own life when I do these exercises. Very often it takes a very long time before I get the results that are listed or what other people tell me about, but they set things in motion that allow you maybe to get the answer in some other way. That's why it's very important to do these exercises. Okay? And of course, this is not some form of self-hypnosis, okay? Which would be a very different thing altogether. So who's had good luck with this? I saw a hand raised. Sue, you want to do it? Are you sure? Are you going to see past lives for the next 20 years, or you married? Okay, cool. Yes. Russ, you look unhappy that I picked your wife for this experiment. I'm sorry.
A halfway or transitional psychic, I mean, you're supposed to be working on something, but even though you're forcing it, or whether you're, when you teach, you know it's not probably the truth in a situation, or is it something that you need to get working something that you're working towards, and you don't know whether you're really forcing yourself?
I think there is kind of a halfway point. I think you're right, where things are kind of muddled. But I also think that if you have to ask, then maybe it isn't.
Yeah, that's what I meant. That's what I thought.
It's kind of hard to explain there. It's like an intuitive experience. When you have it, it's very clear, it's very specific. You simply know it to be true. When you've had certain psychic experiences, no matter how silly or bizarre they may appear or be, okay, you just know that they are. Maybe you don't listen. I remember, for example, I had one psychic experience in which a very clear stop sign appeared in my mind. Unfortunately, her skirt was far too short, and I was thinking with a different brain, and stop doesn't, you ignore that. So you have these experiences, and of course I emotionally paid for it later, but that's what happens. You can have those kinds of experiences where you question it. And I think you question it because lack of experience in it, or also because you want something else. Okay. Oh, this is a real clear stop sign. Yeah, God was talking to me in no uncertain terms. But then, it was not a major trauma in my life, but it was just one of those things where it's kind of an avenue. I think where there's more clear things that you're supposed to really do or not do, you get a much more clear message, or you avoid them altogether and don't even know. But in this realm, it's very difficult because the images are often weak and shadowy. They're almost like a reflection of a reflection. And, we want to enter into it, but we also, as Kabbalists or alchemists, move beyond it into some of the other realms of the tree, or at least make contact with them. I think that's important. I was reading a night or two ago, that the Philosophers of Nature, the course material, was designed it had two choices in the way it could go. One was initiatic, in terms of where you go to each level, you master the level, you move on to the next. And the other was where it could go along the lines of contact, where you don't necessarily have to go in the Sephirotic order, but you can kind of reach up, make a contact at a level, come back down and have something and begin to piece it together. I think you can begin to use that too, that when you have these contacts, there'll be certain symbolism that makes them clear. So if you're doing a lot of alchemical work, it'll have alchemical symbolism. If you're doing a lot of Kabbalistic work, it'll have Kabbalistic symbolism. But it'll be brighter, depending on where it is on the astral spectrum, which is really just your psyche. Remember that, just reflections of your psyche and how you're interpreting the universe. Well, I think Sue has experienced nirvana by now, so we'll turn the lights down. Okay. You should nice and relaxed. Good posture. No stress or strain. How'd you do? Yeah.
Very strange. I think with the energy of people.
Yeah.
Very different reaction it wasn't me, but it was very few of what I saw was who I was or who I will be.
Yeah.
It was others, and I knew it wasn't me. And I think because of the energy in the room, that's what I was picking up.
Okay.
That's what I was thinking.
Were you able to get the black?
It goes so fast.
When?
First, everything blurs. It's like my aura blurs the whole image.
Okay.
Then space everything. And I have to be real careful what I ask him.
Yeah.
I have to be very specific what I ask him. You know? In other words, I have to say, who was I? Who will I be? Who am I now?
Yeah.
I have to be very specific. And then I get the answer. But when I said, who was I? It wasn't me. It wasn't the ones that I know that always come when I ask that. And there was no feeling of recognition that I always get. And I think I was picking up. It was very strange. It was very good.
Well,
it was strange.
That kind of answers your question too. That you can kind of like that's the problem, and that's a big problem when we're trying to give demonstrations. First of all, we have the problem trying to demonstrate a method of doing an exercise. Really what we can say here is, this is a nice distance, this is a good mirror, this is a good posture, okay? The lighting is right. But we can't demonstrate what goes on inside her psyche, okay? We can kind of talk a little bit about it, but whenever you keep that in mind, that whenever you go to these things, particularly psychic fairs or readers at these things, I mean, most of them probably can't. And those that can could just be picking up on whatever's ambient in the environment. So, when we do group work, that is individually in other organizations, we do group work for the benefit of having other people there on a focused goal. There's also a negative side to that, is being in a group, and maybe just picking up on ambient thoughts. So just kind of keep that in mind if you're tempted to go do you pay your $15 for your tarot reading at the next New Age fair.
I have a comment to make. One time, I was in an extremely stressful situation and was very angry and didn't realize how angry I was. And I went to the mirror and was doing the experiment, and usually I'm very specific on what I say. And what I said was, show me how I am. And there was like this monster. And that's how I felt inside, and I didn't realize I felt that until I saw the mirror. And that's what I learned to be very specific. But I actually, because we'll show you it's definitely correct. So,
Thanks, Sue.
it's like a,
Yeah.
yeah, one right after another. It's real rapid.
Okay. Yeah, remember, being married is like being a Chinese emperor. History begins now. There is no before time. And if there was, we speak of it vaguely as the before time. Yeah. The pre-Enlightenment era, the Dark Ages. Yes. Yeah. Sure. Well, when we did as the exercise is given, it's told in the beginning not to be specific. Just allow your inner self to tell you something. It'll tell you what you need to know. So in the beginning, just be passive and open to whatever you do. And as Sue has told us, make sure that you pay attention to the line in the instructions that says, be positive. So just be open to it. And after you get some success and some skill with it, begin asking questions. I think it's it's always safe to go by the rules, and in the beginning just follow the directions and see what your inner self tells you. I mean, obviously it knows what we need better than we do, otherwise we would be going to it or spending all this time and energy trying to develop contacts with it. Yeah, I'm sorry, Sue. I also have I'm kind of fortunate. The mirror that I have has been used for this kind of work for about 80 years. So, it's been used by only one other person. So, for really just this kind of thing. So I tend to cover it with silk when I'm not using it. You don't have to. That might help. You don't have to. And it's just as effective and a lot cheaper than going out and spending lots of money on those different so-called magic mirrors with the black surfaces. So if you want, you can go make them and try them, but what they do is they don't require as much concentration. You get the added benefit of developing certain other skills with this. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Well, you have a lot of exercises that we'd like you to do. And it's really important that you keep your notebook. So how many of you are doing that? Yeah. When do I get to play the Mother Superior and wrap all your knuckles with a ruler? Okay. Once again, the advantage to writing it down is it tells a message to yourself that you're serious. Okay. And as Jean has stated in previous lectures, when you get these messages, just as when you do this work and you send a suggestion to your inner self saying, I would like some information on such and such, it may be colored by the planetary rulership of the day. So when you keep your notebook, you can begin to piece together your insights, your dreams, your meditations. I mean, I'm sure all of you have had a dream on Monday, then you've had a dream on Tuesday, then you've had a dream on Wednesday, and they've made no sense to you whatsoever, or no relationship to one another. But if you begin trying to piece them together Monday to Monday, Tuesday to Tuesday, they begin to have meaning. And here's the other thing. Even if all that idea of planetary rulership and skipping days to match up with weeks is just a bunch of crap, it doesn't matter. Because your subconscious is such that as soon as you give it that suggestion, it takes it as the rules of the game. That's the rules of the road. And then it will have meaning for you. Okay? Which is one of the problems that we get into when we start to deal with symbolism. We all like to be eclectic. We like to be a master of all trades. And that's really not possible. And the path that you choose is a path which is often one which is very symbolic. And symbolism is the vocabulary of the soul. It is how we communicate from the inner to the outer. It is very important that you stay consistent in your symbolism so that you can begin to learn to speak as well as listen to the messages of your inner self. That's why while it can be very good to study 6 different systems, you can also find that your inner life becomes very garbled because it doesn't know what to speak to you in. So if you study a Kabbalistic path, spend a lot of time imbibing yourself with Kabbalistic symbolism. If you're studying an alchemical path, spend a lot of time with alchemical symbolism, or particularly that manuscript or two that you like to rely on very heavily for your operation, so that you can begin to make it a part of yourself and begin to use it. I like to say that symbolism is, as we said, is the vocabulary. Symbols are the vocabulary of the soul, and ritual is its syntax and grammar. And through it, we begin to weave entire paragraphs that allow us to have better attunement. So, kind of as best you can, stay focused so that you can get results from your work. Don't spread yourself too thin. I know it's always appealing to go out and do that. I'm a book junkie myself. I read far too much and practice far too little, although others may think otherwise. But it's best to spend time, do the work, pay attention to your notes, pay attention to what yourself is revealing to you, and you'll find that your results will increase, and you'll find a greater self-reliance in your work and its directedness. Well, we have about 20 minutes left. If you like, we can break. I know Jean is here, and dinner takes some time to get to. It's not exactly across the street, by the way. It takes some bit of time to get to.
wanted to tell you that I wrote this maybe 20 years ago.
J'ai été très content de ce qu'il a dit.
I was very happy with what Mark said.
Mais il manque peut-être une petite chose qui n'est pas dedans.
There's maybe a little thing that's not in it.
C'est que si vous méditez sur l'échiquier,
It's that if you meditate on the checkerboard,
vous allez sûrement provoquer des rêves
you will probably induce dreams
de caractère symbolique mais initiatique,
with symbolic and initiatic,
spirituel, tous les côtés spirituels de l'être.
spiritual, any kind of a spiritual things in life.
Si vous voulez que le damier vous aide sur le point de vue matériel, si vous voulez de l'aide sur le point de vue matériel,
And if you want help, material
il ne faut
help,
pas prendre l'échiquier mais le damier.
don't take the checkerboard, but the chessboard, or the other one.
Le damier
Chessboard. Yeah.
orientera les rêves sur des aspects matériels.
The chessboard will will orient the dreams on the material aspect.
Et là, le symbole de base de chiffre 10,
This symbolism here is number 8,
et dans le damier, là, le nombre de base est le chiffre 10, qui a un caractère plus matériel.
and in the chessboard you will find 10 as a primary number, and it's more material.
Après, nous ferons une petite présentation au restaurant, et je vous dis à demain matin.
I think we'll have a little presentation in the restaurant, and I say see you tomorrow.
The session is 2 exercises. One is the Kabbalistic formula that appears somewhere, I think, around the lesson 11, and meditation on the heart, which, I just want to repeat this over and over again, as we're constantly told, we need to become beings of the heart. We need to learn to bridge the gap between our mind and our emotions, but more so not just our emotions, but our heart, which gives us access to an intuitive level that we cannot get through other means. This is where we meet. It is not the domain of, but it is where we meet our higher self halfway. Or it is halfway up the tree of life. It is there that we begin to commune with our inner self. Our holy guardian angel, our master within, whatever you'd like to call it. So before we go in that direction, I think it's important that we have a preview of what is Qabalah, because some folks here are new. You may not be as familiar with Qabalah, and by reviewing it tonight, we can save a little time for tomorrow and allow Jean to speak about other things. So let's have a quick review of the tree and what it means to you and me. This is a typical version of the tree of life, and it represents the descending energy known as Mezla, which is the energy of creation. As it emanates from this realm called the Ein Sof, or the Ein Sof R, or the limitless light of God. The limited light of God creates something that reflects itself. This we call Keter, or crown. Keter then in turn does what it knows, and it creates something that is similar to itself. But because now we're getting a reflection of a reflection, or kind of like a third-hand generation photocopy, things get a little fuzzy. And we get Chokmah, or wisdom, which in turn creates or generates Binah, intelligence, Chesed, which is mercy, generating Geborah, or strength, Tiferet, which is beauty, Netzach, which is victory, Hod, which is glory, Yesod, which is foundation, and then finally Malkuth, which means kingdom, or our terrestrial world. This we call the descent of energies, and occurred at a moment of creation when all creation began, and continues to this very moment. It is always going on. This is the descent of energies. Well, if there's a descent of energies, that means there is a what? An ascent. This we call the rising serpent, which is what we are attempting to do in our work of return. That is why this work is often called the path or the way of return. We attempt to go from our dense world of Malkuth up through the subtler worlds or subtler realms back to the original Godhead from which we came. This Godhead is a primordial unity, which in the Pawn Lessons is described as being a wonderfully omnipotent, omniscient, dumb thing. You say, why dumb? Because all it knows is itself, and itself is perfect unity. There's no differentiation. So there's nothing to know. You know one piece of the puzzle, you know it all. So in its act of creation, in its act of dividing, or giving the appearance of division, by separating parts out, it creates duality. And in duality, we have the opportunity for evolution and growth. Because we have the possibility of resistance, opposition. Okay. And how often isn't it that in life we don't learn from what comes easy, but we learn from what we overcome? So if that's true for us, how can it be any less true for a grand creator, or what have you, creatrix, or divine being we call God? What makes this unique, however, is that in Qabalah, and in alchemy in particular, it is very specifically stated that something peculiar happens. Up here is all energy, with very, very little matter. And as we've said, very little consciousness, at least as far as we are concerned. Because there's really nothing to be conscious of. Well, excuse me, there's total consciousness. Because there's just one thing and you know everything. Down here in Malkuth, there's a whole lot of matter, no energy, and of course no consciousness. And then of course we have varying grades in between. So what essentially we do is we trade off this vast knowing and vast energy, we trade it off and create matter. That's an interesting point. It's not we give it up for matter, like we're making a trade, in the sense that we hand one thing over to another. But with our energy, we densify it and create matter. Okay? And as we go down, we create matter. And then on the return, what do? We take that latent energy that is in matter, like rocket fuel for a booster rocket for the shuttle, and we use it to climb back the tree in order to trade that matter off for energy and consciousness. It's very important point to understand. Are you clear on that? Okay. So on the descent, we trade off energy and consciousness for matter, and on the ascent, we trade off matter for energy and consciousness. Okay, for the return. Now, that means that, as many of you have heard before, and I think it was touched upon in the plant lecture, this Vajrayak's lecture, that pure energy and pure matter are just reflections of one another. Okay? So it is in Malkuth that we can come to understand Keter. Okay? But if we fold this tree over in half, where do they come into a perfect balance of energy and matter? Right here. At Tiferet. And what's the symbol for Tiferet? Well, the symbol is, it's the sun, right? And as we know, all matter in our solar system is created from the sun. Is the Star of David, or the balancing of energies. Okay? Okay? So we're going to use this later on in our meditation. Because if we can raise our consciousness to this level, even temporarily, we can then have insight into a variety of invisible realms. Invisible realms that are part of the blueprint or the energy source for our material existence. Okay. Now this is a semi-traditional tree. There are other versions of it. Okay, some that have the paths numbered slightly differently, some that get rid of these side paths and put them up here. But in the last 100 years, this has been the fundamental model that people use. Okay. And what it shows us is that not only do we have this balancing of extremes from pure energy to pure matter, we also have the polarity here. Here we have expansive force, and here we have the contraction of force or resistance leading towards matter. So positive, negative, or should we say active, passive. That's probably the best way to think of it, or as we say, electric and expansive, or magnetic and contracting. The problem with positive and negative is that as much as you may try, they still have certain moral connotations that don't exist here. There is no, in that sense, morality. It is not a good or an evil thing. Okay? It's just as you have a car is in motion or it's not. Okay? So you have these polarities. Well, what happens if you exist only on one side? Well, nothing, right? If you're over here just expanding all the time, it really would be like nothing happening, right? Just continual expansion. I guess that'd get boring pretty quick. And if you're over here static all the time, well, that would be boring real quick. But between the two, this constant flux, creation begins to take shape. And through the subtle variations in these positive or these active and passive qualities, we get the varieties of creation that we have. In the middle, we have the pillar of mercy, or the middle pillar, which balances them out. It's very important that we understand that this balancing out is not a neutralization, but it's a very active and dynamic state, and one which is very difficult to hold, because you constantly want to go from one to the other, because it's easier. Picture yourself, it's not unlike a tug of war, but you're the flag, you know? And you're trying to hold these forces together, you know? So the work of the Kabbalist is to ascend the tree. Now, when the Kabbalist ascends the tree, there are several ways that he or she can do it. We touched upon earlier, there's the path of initiation, where you systematically go up each level. And you master each level as you go. That is problematic in one way, because each level has its own rules, so to speak, but also its own sub-levels. Each world is reflected in and of itself. Just as we say Malkuth is made up of the four elements, or the four qualities of earth, air, fire, and water, you also find them on a more subtle level in each of these. Okay? So in the Qabalah course, there's rituals that are given to you to help you to ascend the tree. Another way is to make a contact, where you don't necessarily go up a level and live there, okay, but where you temporarily release the bonds of where you're at, go to a particular level, experience something that you need or want, and bring it back. And of course you do this often enough, and what will happen? You'll begin to make the ascent more easy, and you will progressively begin to master these interior levels. Okay. Another way to look at this diagram is, instead of using the tree, to use the cosmic egg, where we go from spirit to matter, and from matter back to spirit. And Jean talks about this as involution, the descent, and evolution, or the ascent. It's very interesting, because when we look at it this way, what do we see? Does everyone know what these symbols are? Okay, these are the planetary symbols, okay? And here, instead of, we use the Sephirotic number instead of the name. So instead of Tiferet, it's level 6. But it's still, right in the middle. What we see is that someone on level 6 on the descent is what? Just as powerful as someone on level 6 on the ascent, right? What's the difference, though? This person or individual or being will progressively lose power as they go down. This one will progressively expand as they go up. And in the Fundamentals course, he gives the example of Simon Magus in the New Testament as being someone on the descent, because he was able to do all the miracles Jesus could, right? And of course, Jesus, not given by name, but if you at least went to Sunday school for a year as a child, you would have recognized the parable as someone on the ascent. Okay. Many of the problems that we experience in life may very well come from the fact that we run into people who are at our level, but maybe going in the other direction. And of course, if they knew this as a theory, they'd be saying the same about us. But the idea is that you go to such a certain level of density until you receive the initiation of the nadir, which is a cosmic impulse for everything to evolve, and that pushes you up. And you see this often in life anyhow. In particular, I was saying earlier, I did addictions counseling. And you can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped. And often, they don't want to be helped till what? They bottom out. Hit rock bottom. Okay? So, how can it be any different for any of us in other areas of life, particularly the grand scheme of creation? And we can't know everything, which is the purpose of our incarnating, first of all, unless we experience this ultra-dense level. And I'll tell you, when I think about it, it's mind-numbing to think about what this level would be like. And of course, slowly, we shed some density off and begin the long trek home. These top three levels are aspects of unity. This model of the tree is very good, but there are problems with it. That's why some other variations exist that try to address those issues. This does a pretty good job. This is pure unity. This is unity, how could we say, in expansion? And this is unity with the seeds of duality, the potential of duality in it, but not yet existing. Only when we cross this line, known in Qabalah as the abyss, does duality begin to exist as we know it. Okay? That is why they say that only at Malkuth and only at Keter do we have unity. I think that might also apply, though, to Tiferet and in some ways to Yesod, too. I'm not sure. So, how does this go, then? We go from perfect unity, we're descending, we're giving up our energy, we're giving up our consciousness, we're taking on more and more matter. So we shed our powers, and we descend. Well, what we do is we don't really shed our powers as much as we reduce them to their seed potential. That's why we're able to reawaken them when we ascend. Because we never give anything up. We can never give anything up. It's always a part of us on some level or some way. But it is shrunk so low, so small, that it's almost as if it doesn't exist. As we reawaken, we ascend the Sephirotic levels again, reawakening and expanding our powers till we reach the point of return. What happens then? I don't know. That's not, I guess, my concern at this point. Here we have kind of a veil. It's called the Paroketh in Hebrew. And it's what separates the astral or lunar world from the astral solar world. Yesod, or the realm of Luna, Levana, the moon, dominates this realm, this world. Shemesh, or the sun, dominates, or Tiferet, dominates this world. This is fundamentally the realm of dreams. As you said, you see these shadowy images in the mirror. This is fundamentally the realm of direct and pure intuition. Okay. This is where we're trying to go. This is your goal. If you can get here, and all of you have at some point had some experience, otherwise you probably wouldn't be here, no matter how far away or how distant it was in the past. This is where you have that experience of knowledge and conversation with your holy guardian angel, or your higher self. And please remember that angel means messenger. Your holy guardian messenger. And I like to think of that as your intuition, your voice of God that speaks to you. Not as a separate entity or a separate being, but a part of yourself. In fact, it is your true self that you aspire to. You aspire to unite with. And when that occurs, you have what's called the chemical wedding, which is written about in The Chemical Wedding of Christian Rosencreutz, which you can get in translation, by the way. It's very nice, from Fanny's Press. Along the way, we have certain help. Any questions on this, on Qabalah? Yes, please. Yeah, you can. Well, you can, there's two ways to look at it. Yeah, you can reach up and access them, or you can go up and live there. Yeah. Well, in a psychic sense. So yes, they are beyond death because they're a psychic state. But you could bring it down and materialize it. Excuse me. When we talk more about the body of light, which is also called the glorious body or the luminous body, yeah, we'll talk about that because it's said that the body of the adept is glorified light. Okay? That's why it's said that the blood of the adept transmutes metals. Okay? Because their vital mercury, their blood, is pure and reaches all levels. Okay? So yeah, you can go up and live there, so to speak, in a mental way, or you can go up and kind of visit and bring something back, bring back a souvenir. Anything else? Any other questions? Transmute. Yeah, metal or anything. 6 or above. Well, anything at all. It can transmute as far as we're concerned. You get into trouble here because what you have is multiple worlds. We have one. Yeah, we have one tree, but we have 4 worlds. This gets a little hairy. I don't want to go into it too much because at this point in the game it's not really relevant. But what you can do is tap on each level. And it kind of expands. I don't have that overhead easily available, so I'll skip it. I'll use this one instead. This is another way to show the 4 levels. Actually, there's a way where they work with 4 different trees, where each of these worlds gets its own whole tree. That's why you end up with 10 divine names, 10 orders of angelic beings, 10 archangels. Okay, because each one gets its own world. But what we do is we can synthesize these down into their 3 essential components, at least for these worlds. And in doing that, we use this tree. This is a little easier to work with, at least for beginners to deal with this concept. The alchemist, starts here at Isaiah and works fundamentally on the Isaic tree, trying to use that energy to punch through Yetzirah. It's a lot of energy. It's really, really very powerful stuff because it's so dense. Remember, the more dense something is, the more energy it takes to make it. Therefore, the more latent energy it stores in potential. So when you're dealing with lead, as it works down here, that's a very, very powerful thing. That's holding a lot of energy. Lead is an energy, it's a miser. it holds it all in and does not want to give it up. So if you can arrest it from it, you release a lot of energy. Okay? That's why it's used to punch through these realms. Excuse me. But what we do really is, when we ascend, is we reach these levels and we experience them. We kind of like visit. We do the 40 cities in 30 days tour. Okay? And then we get back home and say, I want to do that again, but I want to see a little more next time. So then we begin to work specifically on a level. And of course, we can always go take another trip where we do 30 cities in maybe 60 days. But essentially what we're trying to do is to pull the tree up behind us. We're trying to synthesize, return this energy or this matter back to energy and pull it up level by level behind us. And that's what you see very specifically stated in certain Eastern teachings, particularly Tibetan and Chinese teachings, where they talk about adepts leaving very little behind. Yes, question? Yeah, sure. Well, you can at least experience something above it. However, the frequency, or should we say the level at which you experience it, will probably be at one of these lower levels. So let me just find that diagram. I have it here. Yeah, maybe I don't. Maybe I left it home saying, I'll take the other one instead. Yeah, here it is. Thought I had it. And this isn't even one I like to use. There's another one where you clearly have 10 separate trees. Here they kind of overlap. See, because in the 15th century, they didn't have faxes or email. Okay? Guess what? They didn't even have it till about, 10 years ago, as far as most of us are concerned. So what developed in one school in one town might not exactly be the same as another school in another town. So they didn't always completely agree on the diagrams or the meanings of things. What matters is the experience that you have as an individual. Okay? So if you come across a diagram that doesn't exactly match what you're familiar with, it doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. What it means is it may just be a different way of viewing. So if you were to experience Tiferet, you might experience it in the world of Isaiah. Or you might experience it in the world of Yetzirah. Or you might experience it in the world of Bria. And if you're very, very lucky, you might experience it in the world of Absolute. This would have a very physical feeling to it, like a physical harmony of the world. This would have an emotional wholeness to it. This would have a mental wholeness to it. But I think this mental is the wrong word, because too often it implies intellect, and that is not what it means. It means a broadness and wholeness of mind that encompasses the emotions, not devoid of them. It's like seeing the big picture, the big plan. And if you maybe experience this level, you would experience it as it exists as a spiritual reality, which at that point you're no longer with us and wouldn't be sitting here. So our concerns are fundamentally in this realm, and maybe, if we're lucky, into this realm. Sure. The lower ones, at least. The higher ones, get your ticket stamped, and it's one way. So this is the common tree. Now, all of these things, what did we say? They exist as a seed potential within us. Okay? That is why we use colors, we use sounds, why we use symbolism, to awaken this energies within our psyche. We make correspondences between our physical body and these things, so that we can relate to them in a very real material world, because where are we? We're in a very real material world. And we need to find a way to key into them so that we can use them to up the voltage. And that's really what we do. We increase the intensity of our experience. I said it earlier. Steve said it earlier. I'll say it again. All esoteric work is designed at sensitizing the nervous system. When you do deep breathing, what do? Okay. Okay, very nice, thank you. And it's right, and that's, just so you know, that's the answer everybody gives me. I don't want any New Age crap. What happens to the physical body? Sue, what happens when we breathe? And the more we breathe, and the better we breathe, the more circulation we get, the more nutrients our cells get, and in particular our glands, our endocrine system. In fact, what is it? The lymph system, which carries away or detoxes the body, only moves according to respiration. And that was kind of interesting when someone pointed that out to me. And it was kind of cool. Oh yeah. Well, a lot of people don't stretch. So we try to compensate through breathing as often as we can, you know. I can get by without stretching, I can't get by without breathing. So our endocrine system then is tied into our concept of psychic centers. But in particular, the hormones that they put out are part of the experience that you have when you experience so-called higher levels of consciousness. Some parts of it are very real chemical experiences. Okay? Other parts aren't. It's like a trigger. It's a crossover point. I think it's a bridge that allows us to get over. So we purify our bloodstream, we strengthen it, which in turn purifies our endocrine system and helps strengthen our nervous system. And all of this makes us more aware of the world around us, our environment, and even subtler energies which we refer to as psychic or invisible. Okay? If you look at any system of yoga or magic or qigong, that's all what it comes down to. That's why breathing and preparations are so important. That's the cornerstone of this work. Once you've prepared, then you can do more symbolic work or ritualistic work, which allows you to create a resonance or a harmony with these forces or energies as they exist, and I'll say out there versus as they are in here. We'll say out there, they're in actuality. That is, they exist whether we believe in them or not, whereas in here, they're only in potential. And what we're trying to do is increase our rate of vibration so that it resonates enough with them where it pops into our screen of awareness and we say, aha, aha, I know what that is. I know what Yesod is now on some level. I know what Tiferet is on some level. But you get that by working systematically and regularly within the system. And these things respond to the same symbols. That's why I said earlier, and I'll say it again, it's very important to stay within a particular system and really work it and not jump around from this practice to that practice. It's, cross-training may not necessarily be a benefit in esoteric work, you know. Okay. What else? Now, so then, what is the best way to access these levels? Well, the mirror exercise is the best way to access this one. as we saw earlier. That will really help open this up. So regular use of that will help clear out this channel, which is where most of our density lies. Regular work, however, on the heart will allow us to awaken the level of Tiferet. Now, it's interesting to note, and those of you who have access to the stone or back copies of the stone may want to read the essay on secret fire, Kundalini experiences, and alchemical and Kabbalistic practices, because in there the article discusses the awakening of the heart. Most people see the secret fire as simply rising from the base of the spine up to the head, maybe circulating around a few times. However, there are schools, both the Kabbalistic, and these are old ones. I'm not even sure they really exist much anymore. And some Hindu schools that say you can awaken the secret fire, Kundalini, from the heart. And there's a very famous painting done by George Gichtel, who was a disciple of Jacob Beam, who painted a lot of his images. And he shows the serpent coiled in the heart, or around the heart, I should say, in one of the paintings. Which I always thought was interesting, because the Golden Dawn has one of the ritual phrases of the Golden Dawn, it says, "A heart girt with a serpent is my name." And it comes from I think, a Chaldean text, I'm not sure. The point is, though, by working off the heart, because Tiferet is at the center of the tree, we can bring harmony to all of our work. Okay. Well, how do we do that? Well, as we did earlier, we slow the heart down, and it brings us a sense of peace and calm. But we can also do a specific meditation. And the symbol of the heart, as we stated, is the Star of David. Which shows the unity in perfect harmony of energy and matter, of higher self and lower self, of active and passive energies. And if you notice, it's not one triangle over another. It's two triangles intertwined, because what? Both of them are pulling against one another. Fire triangle wants to ascend. The water triangle wants to descend. Fire is the energy of initiation in spirit. Water is the energy that forms matter. They want to go in completely different directions, but they don't, because they're in perfect balance. One is not stronger than the other. You could think of this in many ways as the perfect balance of the right and left hemispheres of the brain, or even the brain and the heart, whatever you wish. There's probably all those things on different levels. But each level, even on the tree, let me just put that back for a second. Just as we said, each of these levels on the tree can be viewed as its own world, with its own levels of matter. That is, earth, air, fire, and water. You could also view each of these as having its own little Star of David in it, or a more polarized view, a simpler view of active and passive energies that we need to harmonize before we go on to the next. Is that my handout? That's the one I want. I think that's what I want. Yeah. There. Yeah, that shows it a little better. You see, 4 trees. Here, God acts directly. We couldn't handle that. We'd be crisp. God acts through the archangels, or the foremen of the universe, the guys who at least know the plan, or at least their section of it. God works through the angels, the grunts. Don't ask them questions. They do one job and they do it real well. Don't ask them anything outside their domain. Well, you may not like the answer. And then God acts through the mundane centers. That would be the physical world, our psychic centers. Okay. So through this star, we move Saturn over here. Normally there's something here known as Thoth. Thoth means knowledge. And here's something, I'll tell you a little secret. All these Golden Dawn folks talk about the horror of the abyss and Thoth and all these things. To the traditional Jewish schools, all Thoth meant is the ability to take our knowledge of the invisible and bring it into the physical world, to make use of it. That's all it meant. So we can get a triangle here and a triangle here. You can overlace the Star of David, showing how, if you blow it up, how Tiferet brings harmony to all of the 7 known powers or energies, which we symbolize through planets, which in us are our what? Our chakras, our principal psychic centers. Yeah, okay. So the heart brings harmony to it. Now, the fire element is what gives us energy for initiation. So we want to do a meditation on what? The fire aspect of the heart. Isn't that what all the scriptures talk about, particularly Orthodox Christian? The fire in the heart? But that's what brings us purity and harmony and all these good things. What it also does is something really cool. And I got into a little bit of a discussion with a fellow about this. He emailed me about the essay on secret fire. And I got 2 essays, just by the way, I got 2 emails. One from a fellow telling me that much of the information in there was very much what he had heard from his rabbi regarding very, very old Kabbalistic schools from Spain. And another fellow told me that it was very, very identical to the information he received from his Swami on a very ancient school of Laya Yoga where they only use 5 chakras. Because, by the way, things grow and evolve. They didn't always have 7. And they both wanted to know what my sources were, and they were somewhat disappointed when I told them. But especially it's interesting when you get it from different perspectives. But they were also, one fellow was very surprised when I talked about using the heart to open the secret fire. And I gave him the source material for that. One was experience, but that wasn't good enough. One is text. So 2, I gave him text. Well, that wasn't good enough either because he wanted ancient text and I couldn't give him one. But if you read Vibrational Medicine by Dr. Gerber, there's a section in there where he talks about how when the heart becomes calm and still, it sends out a vibration that causes the center of the brain to vibrate, that is in harmony with the heartbeat. This vibration then within the brain, because if you're very, very still, of course it feels very loud, goes from the center of the brain and vibrates outward. Bounces off the skull and goes back in. And this constant action of vibration creates sensations in the body. Well, if you look at the way the brain is structured, those things closest to the center point of the vibration are where the nerve endings for the feet, the ankles, the knees, the base of the spine, and the hips begin. So he was saying that Kundalini is experienced phenomenologically as a raising of energy from the base of the spine to the top of the head. But in reality, it starts in the head. And that is where you experience it. That's not to say there may not be secondary effects where the energy actually does rise. But if you were to look at it physiologically or neurologically, they could explain the whole thing as taking place only in the brain. Doesn't mean the brain isn't altered. It sure is. But it's a different way of looking at things. And I think that's important because we now are fortunate enough to have technology to assist us in our work. It doesn't mean what was said before is no longer valid. It just means we have the ability to better understand it. So tradition can push us in a direction that is very good for us. But staying locked in it, well, that turns it into a tune. You know? So that's a very good book to read. I suggest that you do, particularly those sections regarding the awakening and how it relates to the heart. How many of you have done a meditation on the heart and felt a sensation in the center of your head? Yeah. Anyone else? Well, if you do this exercise, you'll join the club. Everybody ready to join? Okay. We set up our oratory. They say that in Latin, the roots for voluptuous means beauty, and volunteer means to will. So, do we have any volunteers, or any voluptuous volunteers? Need a grunt. Okay, I'll put it more plainly. No guts, no glory. Okay. Did you already volunteer for something? No, okay, then get up here. Okay, grab a chair and get up here. Yeah, I know. You were too late. Never let that be said. Right in front of the mirror. You will stare at your reflection. Who is that Greek fellow? I've got his head cold. I can't think quick enough. Narcissus, yes, you'll start. Oh, but no mirror is too pure to reflect your genuine beauty. Yes. I had a kung fu teacher like that, and he really believed it. No mirror was good enough. Yep. So, it is necessary in order to progress on the esoteric path to be in harmony with our environment and to be a being of heart. We do this more easily by working on the heart directly on level 6, which we call Tiferet. We do the usual setup, and we will go through it. We will not skip it. Then we light 3 candles in front of the mirror. The center one is to be higher than the other 2. They symbolize the trinity of consciousness at that level. Each level has a multiplicity of consciousness and matter. I don't want to go into it. I'd rather you just work through it and experience it. Okay. Place the hexagram in front of you and draw a central point. I didn't put a central point on here because I wasn't sure if you wanted to use it for other things. For the sake of the experiment, you can either visualize one there, or you can actually put one there because you will take this home with you tonight, and you'll give me a report in the morning. Or better yet, you'll do it on Sunday morning and give me a report Sunday about the effects. Concentrate on this point and strive to sense your heart there. It is an activation of the heart center, and sense that the fire triangle of the hexagram brings universal love into our heart. So feel as though from the sharp angles of the fire are radiating a love into your heart. Then meditate and say a closing gesture or word. I suggest that you begin with a symbol of silence, okay? But you can use any that you want. You can use bells or knocks or something else. But make it a definite sound or gesture or word. Fiat lux, not fiat lux, fiat, someone could be, amen, anything of that definitive closing nature. Okay? I'm sure many of you have these candle holders. What's on the bottom? Yes. Mine, by the way, are made out of redwood. They haven't made those in a while. Then we need to elevate this. Or what we can do is... Steve? Is it? Can you assist me, please? I don't want to move anything. He knows how all this is set up, and I don't want there to be any problems with clay. Yes, very good. Thank you. Appreciate it. Oh, that's nice. That's it. Yeah. Good. No, because this is. You see that? Yep. Yeah, will that work? Okay. Then all I need is I need something to elevate it. Easy enough. We'll solve that problem. Hey, it's a rug. I'm used to it. Not high enough. Can we use the box? Is this? Can we? You got something that won't melt? Yeah, much better. I don't want to peel wax off that. That'll just do that. There. Better still. I'll wipe that water off. And please adjust those, because you're going to be looking at them, not me. You want to get that center candle a little higher and a lighter. Who's got a lighter? I know Russ has one. I can send you back to the house. Yeah. It stopped. Yeah, that's been the joke all day, is trying to find reasons to send Russ back to the house. Kind of like being in the pound. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn the lights down. Thanks, Steve. Okay. Now. And if you can, try and get it so that the points of the candle are exactly at the corners of the... don't worry about it. This is just for demonstration. When you go home and you practice, try and get it so that the points of the candles are exactly at the points of the triangle of fire. Okay? And please do this, as Steve showed us very dramatically, and I had forgotten really how nice that flame is when you make that concoction of alcohol and I guess it's mothballs or something. Salt, is it salt? Yeah. It just, wonderful flame, and of course it's easy to damp right out because it is just alcohol. The very living flame is a very good thing. Expose yourself to it. My great uncle died when he was, I think, 95 or 96 and a half, and part of it was genes, part of it was being a dedicated esotericist, and part of it was the fact that being a fireman on the railroad, he was exposed to intense heat his entire life. And I firmly believe that exposure to that intense heat had a positive effect on him. Especially being the time that he lived. So now visualize the point in the center of the triangle. Actually, breathe deep first. Do the 4 square breathing. Do that for about 2 minutes. Then offer up a prayer to the God of your heart. If you like, you can contemplate your Keter as we did earlier this morning and bring it down into your heart. Or just offer up a prayer that you receive the enlightenment or the awakening at this level. And then you may become one with your true self. and have that experience of knowledge and conversation with your holy guardian angel, your inner self. And then visual, after you've done that, at your own pace, visualize the dot in the center, or you can actually put it there. A gold dot would be nice. You could do that. Or a little piece of gold, like jewelry, that's a circle. If you have something like that, you can put it there. And feel the rays, heat of the flame, the universal love enter into you as you feel your heart at the center of that triangle. And those of you who are into religious art will know that there's many very famous Eastern Orthodox icons which show Christ with a triangle of fire in red in his heart. This is a very simple but richly powerful exercise. And you can do the 4 square breathing all the way through, just easily. Then you can just stop after a few moments and just allow yourself to focus on the center point. And feel the rays. Feel your heart attune with the center point. And feel it become warmed by the rays. Fire in the corners of the triangle of fire. Feel your physical heart grow warm. Your psychic heart expands. Okay. Then when you're done, just breathe deep and bring yourself back to the world in which you're in. And breathe deep and just kind of stretch in your chair. And do a closing sign or word. as we said. Okay, cool. And then, as we said, we never blow the lights out. We never blow out our candles. We always extinguish them. Have you done that before?
Oh, no, but I have meditated on the heart.
Okay, good. Good time. Nice time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I from my experiences now, I felt like every time I take an in-breath, it would seem like my heart would pulsate, maybe vibrantly. And when I exhaled, it felt like something was rising. I mean, like a little energy, not just like in one string, but it was like a force that just kind of moved.
Yeah.
And then I would exhale and I feel my head pulsate and my heart.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Good. And everyone may not experience that exact same thing, but it's going to be similar. They're going to the harmony gets built up where there's.
Is that a good sign?
I would think so. You didn't have an aneurysm, did you? I would think that would be a good sign. Now, if your head explodes like scanners, hey, as they say, next, new or subject needed. We don't tell them what happens to some of them. And only Sue knows where all the bodies are buried. Good. Yeah. And that's what it's supposed to do. It's remember, we're supposed to be happy. As hard as that may be for some people to get, we're supposed to be happy. If esotericism drives you out, makes you a miserable SOB, well, get off that pillar of severity. You know, it's not supposed to be that way. You're not supposed to be serious all the time, or sarcastic or cynical. Too many occultists are like that. They're so structured. They can't. If something goes wrong in ritual, they think Corazon's going to eat their brain. But yeah, it's a definite control issue there. Okay. Now, one of the things after you've had some awakening, well, before then, but what would be really nice is after you do this, because you want to learn to layer your exercises, is you could do this. Lights, please. A little more. What you could do is, after you've done this meditation, or maybe you've done one like on the mirror, you could use the formula. Now, how many of you have used this exercise? You know what I'm referring to? The so-called Kabbalistic formula in the lessons era? Would you mind... well, I'll tell. Would you mind telling what happened? You lost your memory, but you became a smarter ass. I'll let you get away. I'll let that one run over the hill. I have a friend who, of course, he does everything with full intensity, with full focus and energy. He's geez, too bad we're taping this. There's a story about him in Yitzhak Rabin, I'd like to say, but I don't want it to go on tape. Yeah, turn it off. So you can use this formula to affect your spiritual path or you can use this formula to affect to some degree your material path, but only insofar as it obstructs your spiritual path, if that makes any sense. So if you have outstanding material issues or concerns that are truly preventing you from doing your spiritual work or making obstructions, you can use it to help remove them or find answers to removing them. And this is what had occurred to him. When he was using it for different reasons, sometimes the problem would disappear. More often than not, though, he would find that a solution would occur to him that he had previously not thought of. I think this is probably critical when doing any Kabbalistic work, is all too often when we think of magic, we're looking for real magic. That is, some big invisible hand to come down, grab onto things, and remove it, instead of having a solution revealed to us where we then have to do something. Because we're all inherently lazy and we don't want to do any work. Okay? But occasionally, cool stuff does happen. And he did experience some of that, where problems just vaporized. One of the odd ones was with a client who owed him a great deal of money, but couldn't pay until someone who owed the client a great deal of money paid off. Because it was good for all concerned, and that's important. It was legitimate debts that were legitimately owed. Things just moved a little faster. He didn't ask for that in particular, but that's how it happened. So when we ask for things, it's very important that we don't be too specific in how it's to occur. But what we're doing is we're limiting the omniscient power of God. The cosmic knows best and what is best for us. So if we say, you know, I'd like a 72 Chevy in good running condition. Okay. Yeah, I want a 72 Chevy in good running condition convertible. In purple. That's her. She gets it. She gets the, you know, she gets the purple one. Yeah, what was the car that you wanted? Was it a Colt? No, is it, you know, as long as it's Mustang, the Mustang, yeah. Ford Mustang. So, okay, but I want a 72 purple convertible Chevy with white wall tires, 36,000 miles, delivered to my door for under 10 grand, for under 5, for free. What you do is you keep limiting this. Now the cosmic may have delivered that to you anyhow. You may have gotten exactly what you wanted or something very close. But if you keep putting these limitations on it, then you keep putting obstacles in your path. And what esotericism is attempting to do, or to help us do, is to remove obstacles from our path. And part of that means trusting in a more potent power within us. So the rules for this game are pretty specific. Whether they issue from a formula or whether they are natural, the use of powers should obey a certain number of principles as natural powers are under the surveillance of the higher self in the evolutionary phase. As we ascend, we have access to power. Even if we don't make a permanent residence up here, we can make a contact up there that gives us access to the power. We have to remember that the law of karma will balance everything out in the end. So we have to be careful about what we do. Excuse me. Never make a flagrant demonstration of your power. If you do, you'll lose it. Because that's ego. That's the little self wanting to say, look how great I am. That's black magic. Even if it's not meant to be. The other thing is, if you show someone something they're not ready for, you take away their innocence. You give them a responsibility they're not ready for. Therefore, it becomes yours. Do not hinder nature in its work or seek to reduce disturbances to a minimum. Don't get in the way of the natural flow of things. Use powers only to assist another in their evolution. Don't do the work for them, but help to clear away the obstacles. Make sure that what you ask for is in their best interest and not contrary to their evolution. I found this very interesting. Never intervene a second time in the row for the same cause, particularly never heal twice the same individual from the same illness. If you have to consult the archives of nature, don't brag about it. Don't talk about it. Don't do it for curiosity. Go there for a reason. They say that our friend Thoth Hermes has 42 books which we can read, which actually means an infinite number of books. Don't just go there to browse. Go there for a reason. Never choose the solution of a problem, but ask that it be resolved. Pray to receive understanding before you receive the power. Otherwise, we end up like that Disney film was it, The Sorcerer's Apprentice. And I'll tell you a little story since some of you have asked. Most of you may have read the interview that I did with Dolores Ashcroft-Nowicki. It was in the Snow some time ago. It's still online. You can read it there. And I was asking her about Enochian because Dubuis, had an Enochian course that he got rid of and said that it can be problematic to work with. So I asked her. I wanted to get her view on it. So she said that one of her students, who was a very nice fellow, very experienced, decided he was going to dedicate himself to Enochian. And every day he did rituals in this room he set aside for it. And then one day, something's out of place. So he goes back and he fixes it. And a few days later, a few more things are out of place and he fixes those. One day he comes home and all his books are piled up end on end all the way to the ceiling. Puts them back. He wasn't listening. Hello? Is anyone home? He didn't listen too well. So finally he comes home one day and all of his furniture is in one corner of the room piled up. He got the message. Of course, by then he was calling her for help, saying, how do I fix this? It's important that we pray for wisdom before we pray for power. Because if we have wisdom, we know the big picture. That's Chokmah. If we have power, we'll say that's binah. That's just application. But how you apply has to fit into the big picture. That's what brings balance. So pray for that. And then, of course, the powers will awaken naturally within you. You won't have to go in search of them. They'll awaken as you ascend each level. Okay? I know you've all been reading this. Excuse me. Now, according to the lecture, this is taken from the Enchiridion of Pope Leo III. And the Enchiridion was given to, of Pope Leo III, was given to Charlemagne at his coronation in Rome. At least so the story goes. All these magical books have these fabulous stories, They're all written by Moses. His Latin was pretty good, wasn't it? So this is one of them. Some of these words are Hebrew, some are Greek. Some of them I think are Latin, others I don't recognize. And I have to tell you, I have no clue at what level this operates at. I believe that it probably operates either at the level of Yesod, which is the level we focus on or meditate on if we need to help clear away karma or clear away obstacles, or it may operate at the level of Tiferet. I think it operates at the level of Yesod. That's my guess. Of course, John could answer that better for us, maybe, if he feels like it. You have to be very solemn when you do this. You don't do this just for the fun of it. But you can do it anytime you want for your own enlightenment. So you can do it daily, as long as you're sincere and you're praying for, that general kind of helpful use. It's best if you get a small index card and write it out and carry it around on your person for some time. Keep it in your wallet or your purse. In fact, it's very good if you get a small book, a small blank book, notebook and carry notes in there and write down the things that you do for your daily work. And keep that with you if you need to reference it. Now what I'd like us to do is to have a volunteer to sit up here. But what we'll all do is we'll do it together. And we'll do it for our general spiritual enlightenment. Something nice and vague, yeah. That way we won't have hail falling out of the sky. Rajan is sitting up in bed right now saying, I wish I never put that in there. Got to get rid of that one too. So, who would like to be our guinea pig? I mean, our volunteer, our worthy neophyte. Good. No. Well, I look like I know what I'm doing? I'm just winging it. Only if you ask real nice. Yeah, just sit there and wait for 4. Okay? I'll give this to you. Thank you very much. Ask and ye shall receive. That's when I put the hat out. You don't put money in it. It is not for me. This money is not for me. It is I who relieve you of your burden. I bear that cost for you. So send me your daughters and your wives and your money too. I will bear that karma for you. Are we good? So, continue with it. And now, make a petition to the God of your heart that you might have an awakening. And repeat with me as you look at the formula. And this means to make the sign of the cross. As we say, it's made with the right hand, outwardly and silently, from top to bottom, from left to right, as you've seen many times in different churches. And say it with me. Brachos. Take the sign. En astro. Noxis. Be. Glory. Apon. Agia. Agios. Iskyros. Agla. 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 And we say Aguia. Aguios. Iskyros. Now meditate for a few moments on your question, on your petition, that you may receive enlightenment, an awakening of the heart, that you may be furthered on your esoteric path and be of service to others. And then, so mote it be. For closing sign, or gesture. And that's it. Okay. Raise the lights a little bit. Not terribly complicated. Well, what happens? Well, the basis of mantra is that somehow the sounds create a psychic stress or tension that allow us to access these higher levels of consciousness, even if only temporarily. That's the nature of mantra yoga. I have found, as have some of my friends who've worked with this, to be an interesting little device. I'd be very interested in hearing what your results are. So if across the next few months, maybe the next year, you take into using this daily or weekly or some regular event, just as the checkerboard exercise, let us know. Let me know. My address, my phone number, my email preferably, because then you can write something to me, are all in the stone, where you can get it from Russ or Sue, and we'll publish the results. And of course, it'll be anonymous, unless you won't print your names, but just a compendium of our research. Because that's what the old lodges did. They worked, and they kept notes, they saw what worked and what didn't, they got rid of what didn't, and they kept progressing. So we can be the same and do the same. That's a neat little formula, and like all of the things in the Fundamentals of Esoteric's course, they're surprisingly simple and surprisingly powerful. And I am convinced that with those techniques alone, you could achieve the enlightenment that you're after. It would just take regular use of them, dedication to doing them, and they would unfold within you the course, the direction that is best for you. So, without keeping you any longer tonight, I'll say good night. Thank you for having me, and if there are any questions on any of this or other work, feel free to get a hold of me and talk to me in the hall, and I'll see if I can help you. Okay? Thank you.